there are always more books, and I have more for you. In response to the person who asked, do I only ever review books that I like, or do I just read books and then give them a positive review regardless? And let me tell you, there are a lot of books I read that I do not like. So you are just getting the creme de la creme. These are the ones I do like genuinely. 4 for you today. First up is The Sleepwalkers by Scarlett Thomas. Now, I picked up Scarlett Thomas quite a number of years ago when I'd read the end of Mr. Y. She always goes into interesting territory with her. I mean, she's about 5 books now. There was Oligarchy and The Seed Collectors and Popco. Into the territory of unsettling universes. She's done a bit of quantum physics in her books. Whether she has in real life or not, I do not be knowing. And always brings us into the territory of the weird, which makes us look at things from a new perspective. In the one at The Sleepwalkers, we have a fascinating storyline, but also what I really liked about this novel was also the formats she used, because in the contents you will see letter to Richard, letter back to Evelyn, you'll see notes, you'll see an audio transcript, which was one of the funniest pieces of writing intentionally, getting you to say, what is that person saying? And then you realize it's a transcription of a dialogue where, a bit like your spell checker, it does not know what logic is. There is no hope for AI. Yay! But we have also this great storyline of a honeymooning couple coming to a holiday, to an island in Greece with, unusually on a honeymoon, another couple who are, Paul is a particular friend of Richard. And after a week there where everything seems to be sort of idyllic, we get this shift to the week before the storms, or the storm is due to arrive. So you get this kind of already an ominous undertone coming through. And most of the other people, including this group of very young, beautiful people, all leave the island, and the island kind of shuts down, kind of sort of, hunkers down to get through the storm period. But the second week of the honeymoon had been paid for by Richard's mother, Annabelle. So they go up to this Villa Rosa hotel run by the enigmatic Isabel. And there's a cast of characters who are deliberately opaque. And the things start to feel off, basically. Isabel warns them of not only this impending storm and the need for openness, including the openness of windows and doors. And all of these things will begin to make sense as we go through the novel, and some of them are just symbolic. There had been a couple who had come to the same hotel and who had tragically drowned in the sea during the storm because one of them was sleepwalking and the other went in to save them. And this has all been a big tragedy. And there was also a film company, a couple coming, who are interested in also writing up that story. Small cast of characters, you're never very sure who's doing what, but there will be a reason for the sleepwalking event, and there will be a reason for the threats that will come the way of Evelyn and Richard. And their own relationship is very strained by being in this very strange place. Or was it already strained? There's not very much I can tell you about what happens from here, only that there's Thomas's writing is something that leaves you permanently sort of, you think you've put your foot down on solid ground, and then all of a sudden, no, that's not what you know. But she's not playing games. I mean, she's playing games with you, but it's not like the unreliable narrator. It's that nothing's really reliable until you get to the truth. Fabulous, fabulous read. Deeply unsettling, but also deeply intelligent and well worth it. Love that one. Second one up is Michael Robotham's fourth in the Cyrus Haven series, which I'm very interested in. This one's called Stormchild. And I was sort of, having read through this series, I was wondering how he was ever going to be able to tie up this quartet of books. Well, I only just found out the quartet of books because this is the last one. But how he was going to tie up some of the storylines that have existed since the very beginning. So if you haven't read them, they're absolutely super. We have Cyrus Haven, who is a forensic psychologist, and he's our main guy, and he's doing most of the detecting, and he's a bit maverick and has a different take on things, particularly motivations. He has his own trauma, which has been revealed in the previous books, but I'm not going to go there too much now. And he has, in book 4, become, I suppose, the guardian of Evie Cormac, who is a character from book 1, who has been rescued from a child trafficking abuse ring, and has appeared as Angel Face in the papers, and she's become very famous, but also she had to be, for her own good, protected not only from these powerful people who still in each book we're kind of getting there on who they are and trying to come to some kind of closure, particularly for Evie, who's had her she's obviously not going to reveal much about herself. She has a very tense relationship with Cyrus, but you often feel that that's going the right way. How is he going to be able to end this? So in this one, we have a seaside town, we have bodies that wash up on the shore, we have Evie who's triggered because she herself, we know this, is a migrant Albanian, and there is a suspicion that all may not have been quite literally above board on their journey, their seabound journey. It involves trawlers. It involves us all going up to Scotland. It involves rings connected to trafficking, connected to everything slightly unsavory, but deliciously held together by this relationship between Evie and Cyrus, which has to work itself out. Superb ending. He couldn't have done it better. And if you've been following those, definitely pick that one up. And if you haven't read those, Michael Robotham series, do. They're well worth it. Next one. Oh my goodness, a total change. I mean, talk about the weird and wonderful you'll get in books. And each of these does something different. It's, what are you looking for in a book? Well, you don't always know. And then, like this one, which is Tehrangeles, which is by, and I had to this Porochista Khakpour, Iranian writer. It totally knocked my socks off, partly because there is this absolutely superb cover. I mean, we don't give enough credit to cover artists, but goodness, that one really hooks you in. It's all sparkle and spangles, and it gives you an idea of the content you're going to get. This is written about an Iranian-American family in Los Angeles, and even though the author does say there is a kind of a nod to Little Women in there are 4 daughters in this family, the nod is really not even symbolic, but it's just there are 4 girls. We are looking at them being quite different, and we are going to follow some of the lines that are followed in plot lines that are followed in Little Women, but also we are commenting, or the author is commenting, American, that the iconic American life, and why would that not be Iranian American, and what is it to be Iranian? So we have these 4 girls who are going to be, at least the whole family is going to be involved in a reality show. We have the father, Ali Milani, who has made his fortune from a little fast food nibble, which he calls the pizza bomb, B-O-M-M-E, from an Iranian in America. That's pretty funny. So she's very much set the tone for what we're going to expect. The wife, Homa, was, comes across as someone who retires, is not interested in socializing or being terribly visible. They're very, very, very wealthy. They're not possibly wealthy enough for Ali, but the mother, obviously the idea of this TV reality show. Now we're thinking Kardashians here, if you know who they are. The mother obviously wouldn't be 100% on board with this. We're in 2020, and the 4 daughters are very different. There's Roxana Vanna, Violet, Haley, and Minna, and they are very, very different from each other. COVID hits. A reality show may or may not, it's put on hold. The girls are all well, particularly Roxy. It's Roxy we're looking at, social influencer. What's an influencer? We're going to look at that, or at least that's what Khakpour is looking at. And at one point they decide maybe because society has shut down quite so much, it might be an idea to throw a party. And are they going to do that? How does the family argue for that? So instead of it just, you can read this book on the level of, it's insanely funny on the level of how the girls talk to each other, how they talk about their world, how they perceive their world, how they talk to their, to their followers, how the world is about likes and being viewed, and the secrets you've kept, and can you keep them forever, and what's going to bring things to the surface. But we are also underneath that being asked to look at what is online living, what has it done to our interpersonal relationships or living as a society, what is body image, what's we've got, one of the girls is she's a model, but she's kind of wandering into plus size territory. Is this good, is this bad, how do people comment that? And you get this kind of sort of contrast between the hilarity. There's an absolutely insanely funny moment with a cat psychic who tells some absolutely, unerring truths about the girls, which the girls didn't even know about themselves, but the cat knows. Make of that what you will. So you get these hilarious, you get this kind of this vanity, this take on life, which is sort of gross but funny, and their relationships and how these values, we can ridicule them, or they can ridicule themselves, or is it really ridiculing? We're looking at them, and by the end of this, we're actually looking at, goodness, the things that young people think about themselves and what they have to go through and how this world is for them. It becomes a very, at least my feelings for all of those girls became incredibly sort of tender and interested, and I was fascinated by this negotiation of the current world and of all of the things that affect all of us. But we are kind of honing in on the female, the young woman in current society, with all her identity and love lives, and how I look and how important is all that. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous read. And the one I have only just put down, what an eclectic bunch of books this is All the Colours of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. And he wrote We Begin at the End, which I think blew a couple of people's minds. And I picked this one up. It's chunky, and I was in the mood for a nice big read that would kind of keep me indoors in this inclement weather that we're having. Goodness, it's like Trent Dalton meets William Kruger Kent, This Tender Land, The River We Remember, which they were two of my favourite books. With a Trent Dalton who also has this lovely whimsy, magical realism, and that story that just goes straight to your heart. With a little dash, and it's a little dash, it's not a big, big, big dash, though it depends on how you read the book, but of True Detective. There is that storyline going on of abducted girls and a kind of bit of religious fanaticism. But we have got this two things that make this book so eminently readable. One is that Whitaker has chosen to use these very short chapter formats. The book is divided in 4 parts. It may be 5. I think it's 4. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I am imperfect. No, I'm not. Those 4 parts are divided into these very, very pacey but short. There are chapters that are about 2.5 pages long, up to 5-6 pages long, as a general rule. And it makes it a very sort of, you're gobbling it up, because it's really like having a trail of, treats for your dog, and you'll get your dog to move from there to there, and eventually you can pat it, that sort of theory. He's really getting you to get to the end of the story, with every morsel along the way being very, very gripping and delicious. So we have let's say, with the friendship of that young Patch, who is has a defect and has only one eye, so wears a patch. And he's invented a world for himself where he's a pirate, alcoholic mother. They're quite poor. We're in Missouri, and he is one of those, you might knock him down, but he'll just get up again, kind of pretty boy, handsome to saint, who lives with her grandmother. We have no parents, and the grandmother is not completely wacky and different, but has a different take on life. Like, you know, she now drives the school buses and has to, or just the buses, and smoke cigars, which automatically gets her cast as sort of a lesbian, which is completely unfounded. But we're again in this territory of what you look like matters. Very, very early, so I can tell you the beginning of the story. Patch is on his way to school. Now, he's a troubled teen. He's stealing, young teen. He's stealing. He's always trying to look out for his mum. She's a bit of a drinker, and there's a local doctor who kind of looks in and is very careful around the mum, and has been helpful. People understand that this boy is in need. Saint absolutely worships him from the get-go because she's kind of that ugly duckling child, and her grandmother is not so sure. On the way to school, he's actually cutting school up through the woods, comes across someone assaulting one of the schoolgirls in his class, and without thinking, he pulls out his not quite pretend dagger and launches himself at this man, and it goes very badly. The girl gets away, Misty, and she comes into the story all the way through, but Patch is taken. And this is where the story becomes these two braids of Patch's, what Patch goes through because he is abducted. And in the dark, you get this part of his storyline. There is a girl that they live in this complete blacked out space, and she recounts stories that you're trying to work out if it's just, you know, her fabulating. It's just fairy tale. It's just anything. But that shared experience bonds them very, very closely together. And you're kept at a very remote distance from what is going on. It's beautifully done that way. You're allowed to have the feelings, but you don't have to. You're allowed not have to visualize or imagine anything terrible, but it is all terrible. So these two become incredibly bonded. And then when things come to pass, he will spend a lot of time looking for her. And I can't tell you any more about that. Every single page is worth it. Meanwhile, Saint is getting on. She's never given up on him, never given up. And it's about this persistence of these two characters and that kind of almost the unreality of what they go through and how persistent they are in trying to find out uncover who these people are or this person is who is taking these girls, and they're being found slowly in different spots. There's a lot of heroism. There's a lot of true love or not true love. There's a lot of faith in myself, faith in others, lots of despair. But it's really one of those sort of, it's a waterfall of a story. You're kind of rolling along, and there are the boulders, and there are the fish, and there's the silver spray, and there's everything. And it's both wonderful and terrible, and you just can't help reading it. So an absolute banger, as they say. That's it from me. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this video where I talk about books, you could think about liking and subscribing, and no pressure. I will see you for the next one.